I knew I shouldn't have come home. Even before I stepped inside the house, I could feel it, the heaviness in the air, like a dinner already gone cold. The front porch light flickered weakly above me, casting long shadows that twitched whenever I moved. It was supposed to be a celebration, my brother's engagement dinner. But the moment I walked through the door, I became the unspoken variable no one wanted to calculate. "Ah, you made it," Dad said, glancing up from his glass of wine. He didn't stand. His smile was the kind people wear when they're trying not to grimace. Mom came out from the kitchen with a tray of appetizers, paused for a second when she saw me, then blinked the moment away like dust in her eye. "Take a seat," she murmured. "We're almost ready." That was it. No hug, no "how are you," no "we missed you." Just an empty chair waiting to be filled, like a placeholder, not a person. I sat down at the far end of the table, next to the coat rack. The smell of roasted duck filled the room, but I suddenly had no appetite. They talked around me as if I were just another piece of furniture. "So Daniel, tell us again about the ring," Aunt Lisa beamed at my brother, her voice full of pride. "I still can't believe you designed it yourself, such talent." Daniel glanced at me briefly, then turned back to the room. "It's nothing really. Just something I picked up while working at the firm. I remember when we were kids, he used to ask me to design things for his Lego castles. 'You're better at details,' he'd say. But now, that history didn't exist. They all went on about jobs, weddings, real estate, babies, normal family things, adult accomplishments, the kind of updates people measure worth by. No one asked me about my work or what I'd been doing for the last 2 years. I guess in their eyes, I was still the one who left college after 1 semester, the one who couldn't finish anything. Mom slid a plate in front of me. Her eyes didn't quite meet mine. "Eat while it's hot." I wanted to say something, anything, but the lump in my throat was hard to swallow. It wasn't just the silence. It was the way silence became a mirror where I saw their expectations hanging like cobwebs, thick and sticky with judgment. But they didn't know. They didn't know the nights I spent learning to code on borrowed Wi-Fi at a coffee shop that never asked me to leave. They didn't know about the app I built, the community I grew, the people who messaged me just to say thank you. They didn't know I had a purpose, but maybe that was my fault. I never told them. I stared at my reflection in the silver spoon, distorted and warped. It looked just like how they saw me, and I hated that it still hurt. As the clinking of cutlery carried on, I leaned back and whispered to myself, "Don't worry, you'll never have to explain yourself to them again. Not tonight." Little did I know, I was wrong, because she was about to walk through that door. 2 years earlier, I left home with $47, a cracked phone, and a promise I made to myself that I wouldn't come back until I had something that was mine. Not a degree, not a title from someone else's company, something I built with my own hands, my own name. But names didn't matter much when you were sweeping floors at midnight in a greasy diner. Or when your coworkers called you kid because you looked like someone who'd dropped out of school, not someone with potential. I remember the first time I discovered open source code forums. It was 2:03 a.m. The night shift had just ended. My feet were killing me, and my apron smelled like burnt oil. I sat at the back booth with a cold sandwich and a dying laptop, scrolling through line after line of logic I barely understood. But something about it felt pure. Quiet. It didn't care where I came from. It didn't care that my resume was a joke. Code just responded. Either it worked or it didn't. So I kept going. Every free hour I had, I read. When I couldn't afford Wi-Fi, I'd linger outside a library, stealing signal. I built my first ugly website using a borrowed Chromebook I found in a pawn shop. I failed, over and over again. But then, there was this one idea. A platform where freelancers, especially young ones who didn't have Ivy League diplomas or polished portfolios, could showcase real work. Not just filtered case studies, but the kind of problem-solving that mattered. Fixing bugs, building prototypes, helping small business owners who couldn't afford flashy agencies. I called it patchwork. Because that's what we all were. People piecing together experience from fragments of real life. At first, no one came. Then one person did. Then 2, then 10. I didn't put my name on the site. I used a moniker, E-Sparrow. I told myself it was for anonymity, but deep down, I was scared. Scared of failing publicly. Scared of being my family's proof. See, She tried, and look what happened. But behind the screen, something real was happening. People were finding jobs, connecting, building portfolios that helped them escape dead-end situations. I'll never forget the first email I got. "Hi Sparrow, just wanted to say thank you. I got my first paid project because of Patchwork. I was thinking of dropping out like you did, but now, I think I'll keep going." That night, I cried into my blanket in the corner of the tiny room I rented. Not because I was sad, but because for the first time in a long time I felt useful. And maybe that's why I didn't tell my family. They didn't believe in the quiet kind of success. To them, if you weren't on TV or wearing a suit or making six figures, they'd still call you a dreamer, a failure with good intentions. But I was building something, and every time I opened my inbox, every time someone tagged Patchwork on a forum thread, every time a new user registered, it reminded me, I wasn't lost. I was just invisible. I didn't notice her at first. The living room was crowded with voices and the smell of reheated appetizers. My brother was making the rounds, laughing a little too loudly, as if to prove how well his life had turned out. I was still sitting on the edge of things, a forgotten cushion in the corner, nodding politely whenever someone made eye contact, just long enough for them to look away. Then the front door creaked open, and everything in the room shifted. She walked in wearing a navy dress that looked like it had been tailored to the curve of her confidence. Her hair was pulled back in a loose bun, casual but calculated, and when she smiled, people moved toward her without even realizing it. Daniel rushed to her side, his entire face softening. "Everyone, this is my fiancée, Madison." I froze. Madison? No. It couldn't be. I knew that name. I had read it at least a dozen times in emails from someone named M. Madison, one of the first investors who contacted Patchwork through the anonymous form. We had exchanged messages about ethics in freelance pricing and scalable verification methods for users. She had offered generous, thoughtful feedback, and she had loved the idea. Said it reminded her of how she started. Said she wanted to help, but never pushed. Back then, I thought she was some mid-level product manager, but now, she was standing in my family's hallway, slipping off her coat, kissing my mother on the cheek, and laughing with Aunt Lisa like she'd been part of this family for years. I didn't want to assume. It couldn't be her. She glanced around the room, and then her gaze locked on mine. It only took a second. Her expression shifted, like someone flipping through memories too fast to stop at a single page. Then her eyes widened, lips parting just a fraction. "You?" My heart slammed against my ribs. She stepped forward slowly, like she was trying not to spook a deer. You're E. Sparrow, aren't you?" she asked. Everyone went quiet. Daniel blinked. "What?" "I didn't catch your name earlier," she said, eyes never leaving mine. "But I know that face. We've emailed a lot about Patchwork." It felt like a spotlight had been turned on me in a room where I'd been invisible for years. I opened my mouth, but nothing came out. Mom looked between us, confused. "What's Patchwork?" Madison's voice was soft but full of awe. "It's a platform, a brilliant one. We've been watching it grow for months. I've been telling my team we need to reach out to the founder again." I didn't realize. She trailed off. Daniel furrowed his brow. "Wait, are you saying my sister founded a startup?" I didn't want this. Not like this. But part of me, the tired, lonely part, wanted someone to see. So I nodded. "I built it." Just like that, the room changed. The air tightened. The looks that used to glide past me now stuck like glue. Dad leaned in. Aunt Lisa whispered something to Uncle Ron. Even my mother blinked like someone had just unplugged the fridge. For a moment, nobody said anything. Then Madison stepped closer and held out her hand. "It's an honor," she said. "I've admired your work for a long time." My fingers trembled slightly as I shook hers. Daniel stared at me like he didn't quite recognize who he was looking at. That made two of us. "Wait, hold on," Daniel said, his voice slicing through the awkward hush in the room. "Are you telling me my little sister built that freelancer thing you keep raving about at work?" Madison glanced sideways at him, her tone calm but pointed. "Patchwork. And yes, that freelancer thing currently has over 80,000 active users and just passed Series A funding last quarter." You could hear a fork clatter against a plate. Mom's smile twitched, like it didn't know what expression to become. "I thought you were... last time we spoke, you said you were just working from home, doing something with computers?" I said, feeling the heat crawl up my neck. I didn't lie. I just didn't think anyone was really interested. Dad cleared his throat. You should have told us. We had no idea you were doing something so. He trailed off, searching for a word that wouldn't sound condescending. Big. I gave a small shrug. It didn't feel big when I was sleeping on the floor of a sublet studio and living off instant noodles. It felt like trying not to drown. Daniel crossed his arms. But why didn't you say anything? You made us all think you dropped out and gave up. You just disappeared. I looked him straight in the eye, because every time I tried to explain what I was working on, someone either laughed or told me to get a real job. So I stopped trying. Silence. Then Aunt Lisa, bless her socially unaware heart, leaned in and said with a curious smirk, So, does it make any money yet? Madison let out a breathy laugh, polite but sharp. It is money. Do you have any idea how many investors have been trying to get in? Her model is being studied at Stanford as a case example of next-gen ethical gig platforms. You'd think she told them I'd just invented fire. Everyone suddenly leaned closer. The shift in tone was so sudden it made me dizzy. They started asking questions, real ones, about users, growth, traction, algorithms, scalability. Uncle Ron, who hadn't said a word to me in 2 years, now wanted to know if I needed a CFO. Even Daniel, now flushed with a mix of surprise and bruised ego, looked genuinely rattled. You built all that? By yourself? I hesitated. At first, yes. Then I started hiring a few remote devs. I reinvested what I made. I stayed anonymous because I didn't want the noise. I just wanted the work to speak for itself. Mom's voice was soft. Why didn't you tell me? And for a moment I didn't know whether she meant it as regret, apology, or blame. I looked down at my plate, now cold. I guess I wanted to be someone first before I came back here. Madison put a hand gently on my shoulder. Well, now they know, and maybe it's time they start listening. I glanced around the room and saw it. Something had shifted, but it wasn't quite trust or pride. It was interest. The kind that feels heavy, transactional, like they suddenly wanted something from me. And maybe I was still that girl at the end of the table. But for the first time, they had to lean in to hear me. It was strange how quickly they changed. 1 hour ago, I was the background noise, the phase they hoped I'd grow out of, the daughter they couldn't quite explain to neighbors. But now, I was impressive, smart, resourceful. I could see it in how they spoke to me. The careful choice of words, the newfound curiosity. Even the way they sat a little straighter when addressing me, as if status was something that could be caught through posture. Dad refilled my wine glass. So, what's next for Patchwork? Mom smiled like someone dusting off an old photo frame. You always were good with computers, remember? I used to say she had magic fingers. No, you didn't. I forced a polite smile. Daniel leaned in. You should have let me help. I have contacts now. I could have introduced you to some serious players. Thanks, I said, but I think I needed to do it on my own first. He nodded slowly, jaw tight. Madison watched all of this unfold with an expression I couldn't quite place. Part admiration, part concern. They started asking for details, how I scaled without funding, how I verified users, how I handled legal issues. Dad even took out a notepad at one point. I had to bite back a laugh. For years, these were the same people who'd told me I should have gone into nursing, or accounting. Something secure, something they could understand. But now that other people, real people in their eyes, had started validating me, suddenly I was worth listening to. I should have felt triumphant. Instead, I felt empty. Because I knew this wasn't about me. It was about the version of me they could now use as a trophy. The look what our daughter did version. The sanitized, retroactively supported success story. I had once dreamed of this moment, of coming home and finally being seen. But no one was asking what it cost me. The years alone, the doubt, the nights I thought about giving up, the therapy sessions I could barely afford. No one wanted to hear about that. Just the headline, just the stats. Still I played along. For now. Would you ever sell? Uncle Ron asked, his voice dropping like he was inviting me into a secret handshake. I shook my head. Not yet. It's not done becoming what it's supposed to be. Daniel nodded slowly. You've really changed. I met his eyes. No, I've always been this. You just never looked hard enough. He didn't respond. Later that evening, while the others clinked glasses and shared stories I had no part in, Madison found me standing alone by the back porch. She handed me a glass of water. They're proud of you, you know. I raised an eyebrow. They're proud of results, not of the work it took to get here. She didn't argue, just sipped quietly. I know the difference. A moment passed, then she said, they'll adjust, or they won't, but you don't owe them a performance. I turned to her. Why are you being nice to me? She smiled, because someone should have been a long time ago. That almost broke me. Not the applause, not the numbers. The quiet validation from someone who didn't need anything. And in that moment, I realized something. Success isn't about proving people wrong. It's about no longer needing to. The party had thinned out. Most of the relatives had left, carrying their to-go containers and recycled compliments with them. The living room was finally quiet. No more clinking glasses, no more questions about exit strategies or market share. I stayed behind to help clean up, mostly to avoid another round of invasive small talk. Daniel had gone upstairs with a headache, and Mom kept glancing at me like she wasn't sure if she should be proud or apologize. That's when Madison found me again. She walked in barefoot, holding her heels in one hand and a small envelope in the other. Her hair had come loose and she looked more like a person now than a fiancée. Mind if I sit? She asked, motioning to the empty bar stool. I nodded, wiping the counter slowly. She set the envelope down in front of me but didn't open it. I wasn't sure if I was going to say anything, she began. But after today, I think it's time. I looked up. Her eyes didn't flinch. I work with a venture group, she said. Quiet partners, mostly women-led funds. We look for founders who build for impact, not just valuation, and we've been watching Patchwork for a while now. I said nothing, just listened. Originally I wanted to wait until your platform hit a certain threshold, she continued. But you've already passed it, twice. She tapped the envelope gently. That's an offer, from me and my team. I stared at it. I don't want you to say yes now, she added quickly. I just want you to know that you're not alone anymore, that if you want to scale, grow, build out your vision, we'll back you. No strings, except one. I raised an eyebrow. She smiled. We want you to stop hiding. Use your real name. Be the face of Patchwork. Silence. That envelope might as well have been a grenade. Because inside it wasn't just capital. It was visibility, responsibility, exposure. It was everything I had run from when I first started, when I couldn't bear the thought of people watching me try. Watching me fail. What if I'm not built for the spotlight? I said quietly. Madison shrugged. Then don't perform. Just speak. Be the woman who built something when no one was clapping. I turned the envelope over. My name wasn't even written on it. Just a small sticker seal. Clean, anonymous. How much? I asked. She smiled. Enough to triple your team and take a proper salary for once. Enough to stop surviving and start leading. My fingers rested on the flap. I didn't open it. I thought you were just dating my brother, I said, half laughing. I didn't expect this. She looked at me kindly. I was you. Years ago. Everyone underestimated me. I didn't have a brother with connections or a family with time to care. But someone gave me a shot. And I've made it my mission to pay that forward. I don't date people like Daniel unless I see the whole family. I didn't know what that meant, but the way she said it made me feel seen in a way I hadn't expected tonight. I'll think about it, I said. I hope you do, she replied. Then she stood up, kissed me lightly on the cheek, and left me alone in the kitchen, with a decision that could change everything. I looked down at the envelope again, and for the first time in a long while, I felt the quiet tremor of possibility. Not fear. Not pride. Just the raw truth that comes with being asked. Honestly. Are you ready to be known? I didn't open the envelope that night. Instead, I tucked it into the inside pocket of my coat, the one I used to keep granola bars in when I couldn't afford lunch. I needed time, not to decide about the offer. I already knew deep down I would take it, but to make peace with everything it meant. The next morning, the sun hit the house differently. It was softer somehow, the way it filtered through the kitchen curtains, like it was asking permission to enter. I made coffee before anyone else woke up and sat alone at the table where everything had changed the night before. This house, this family, they had built a version of me. One that was small, impulsive, reckless, the girl who quit school, who didn't follow through, who needed saving. But that wasn't me. Not anymore. Maybe not ever. Later that afternoon, just before I left, I walked into the backyard where Daniel was setting up decorations for the engagement photos. He looked tired, or thoughtful. "I didn't mean to embarrass you last night," I said. He paused, not looking at me. "You didn't. I just didn't realize how far you'd come. I had this picture in my head of you, from years ago. I guess I didn't update it." I nodded. "It's easier not to." He finally met my eyes. "Madison thinks you're brilliant. She's kind. She's not the kind type, she's the smart type. She doesn't hand out compliments unless she means them." I let that sit. I could have said thank you, but it didn't feel like the moment for that. "Hey," Daniel said, almost sheepishly. "You think, maybe, when you're ready you could show me what you built? I want to understand it, for real this time." That was the one thing I hadn't expected. "Yeah," I said softly. "I'd like that." Back at my apartment that night, I finally opened the envelope. The proposal was clean, professional, generous. But what stood out most was the handwritten note Madison had included. "They might still see you as someone you were, but the world is ready for who you are now. The question is, are you?" I sat with that for a long time, and then I got to work. I updated the About page on Patchwork. I removed the alias, and for the first time, I typed my full name at the bottom of the site. Founder, my name. I didn't make an announcement. I didn't post on LinkedIn or call home to brag. I just let the truth exist. Quietly, proudly. Weeks passed. Madison's team came on board. We expanded our reach, hired more engineers, built stronger tools, and every so often I'd get an email from someone who said, "I didn't think I could make it, but your story helped." That, to me, was the real win. Not the funding, not the family's newfound respect, not even the success. It was the freedom to be known, fully, to be more than what they thought I was. And if you're reading this, if you've ever been underestimated, mislabeled, or left out of your own story, I hope you keep going too. You don't need to shout, you don't need to beg, you just need to keep building. Quietly, relentlessly, until someone looks at you and finally says, "You're the founder?" And you smile, not because they're finally seeing you, but because you've already seen yourself.